So there's two movies that are out in wide release this weekend that are both inspired by true stories. So I figured might as well talk about both of them in one video. So the first film is Last Breath, which is based on an incident that happened in 2012, in which a group of deep sea divers are doing a fairly routine mission, but there's some sort of mechanical failure with the ship that they're attached to, and it basically leads to this situation where one of them ends up getting stranded at the bottom of the ocean. So the diver who gets stuck at the bottom is played by Finn Cole, and his co-divers are played by Simu Liu and Woody Harrelson. And this is one of those movies where, as you're watching it, you're like, this isn't necessarily anything remarkable, but there is a sort of familiarness to this kind of movie because we've all seen these kinds of sort of like tragedies, like historical tragedy movies and like the resilience of the human spirit sort of thing. And this is another one of those movies. And you go into, you're like, okay, I figure like these are going to be the sort of beats that it hits. But then as you're watching it, you're kind of reminded, oh, these kinds of movies rock. This is really fun and engaging, and it's very well made. There's a lot of great craftsmanship at play here, and it's incredibly tense. It is a very stressful watch. If you're claustrophobic, if you're afraid of the dark, you're not going to have a great time. You'll probably still enjoy the movie, but you're not going to have a great time while you're watching it. The film does a really good job at kind of capturing the nature of being a deep sea diver, the various processes that they have to go to, not only for the deep sea divers themselves, but also the people on the ship and everything they have to go through, the various steps that they have to complete. So it seems like this well-oiled machine that you think, okay, this is just another routine thing, but things can go wrong, as they obviously have, given that this is a true story. And it's really interesting to see people just work together to solve a problem. This is a really engaging kind of work where you get to see people who are good at their jobs just trying to solve a problem. And it's really stressful watching it because you know what's at stake. You have these like moments where it not only counts down how much oxygen Finn Cole's character has, but then it counts upwards once he loses that oxygen, telling us how much time is passing where his brain doesn't have any oxygen. And it is very rough to watch. I didn't know anything about the true story that this is based on going into the film, so I'm not going to spoil anything for anyone else who hasn't either heard of this movie or know anything about the actual event. But I'll just say it's a really solid movie. It's very thrilling, it's very exciting, and it's very tense. And it's, there's a lot of good craftsmanship involved, and the leads are all really great. They work very well together, and they do a good job at kind of giving nice little details for each character, even if it doesn't necessarily giving itself the time to really focus on them in like more deeper ways, because it is like a tight, like hour 30, hour 40. It's like in and out, like here are the facts, and then we're out. And on that level, it's like really good and really solid. And that might seem like faint praise, but the fact that they're able to pull this off as relatively effortlessly as they have is a good testament to the skill of all the people involved. So this is like a really good watch, and I would definitely recommend it. So the next film is My Dead Friend Zoe, which is based on the experiences of its writer-director, and it stars Sonequa Martin Green and Natalie Morales as these two veterans who had served together in Afghanistan, I think it was. And it sort of deals with Sonequa Martin Green's character, who is dealing with a lot of personal stuff in her life, between her trying to kind of get back into dating and her relationship with her grandfather, who's played by Ed Harris, while also going to these group therapy sessions led by Morgan Freeman's character. And she's very much struggling to cope with the death of her friend, who is played by Natalie Morales. And she sort of appears as not a ghost, but very much a part of her like consciousness, her guilt, as you would say. And the film doesn't really get into how she died. You have a feeling of what it is, given the nature of the movie, who these characters are and what their past is. But it does a good job of like keeping you sort of on your toes as to like when they're going to like open up about that stuff. And I think the payoff to that is really, really strong. This is a very devastating movie, despite the silly title, because not that there isn't any comedy in the movie, there definitely is, but it's the kind of comedy that is very much rooted in tragedy and heartbreak. And it's very earnest, very heartfelt. It has its light moments, but it's very much about these characters, what they're going through, and it's advocating for, better treatment of our veterans, of these programs to give them the mental health efforts that they need to move on in their lives and to create a sort of sense of normalcy that they might not even be able to get back given everything that they went through. And I found it incredibly moving, and it's definitely one that I think is worth a watch as well, especially for the performances. So that's, those are my thoughts on The Last Breath, or Just Last Breath, and My Dead Friend Zoe. So if you've seen any of these movies, feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments.